First, let's talk about Russia and Ukraine. The Maxar radar imagery company released high-quality pictures of the Russian buildup on the Ukrainian border for November 9. The first picture shows elements of the 41st Combined Arms Army in Yelnya, Russia, and the headquarters for the 144 Guards Motorized Rifle Division. The second picture zooms in the area, showing about 495 tanks, self-propelled howitzers, multiple launch rocket systems and support vehicles in a massive parking. The third picture shows two other parkings, one with about 350 tanks, self-propelled howitzers, towed artillery, multiple rocket launcher systems, surface-to-air missiles, short-range ballistic missiles and support vehicles. The other parking has about 390 tanks, self-propelled howitzers, multiple launch rocket systems and support vehicles. The fourth satellite picture shows that between November 1 and November 9 there was approximately a 17% increase in the number of military hardware at that location. Yelnya in Russia is about 250 kilometers from Ukraine. A big military convoy of BTR-80 amphibious armored personnel carrier has been spotted today in Murmansk, Russia. Maybe something normal since Murmansk is a big military base. The White House today called on Russia to de-escalate tensions with Ukraine. Now that's some worthless demand, since asking Putin to stop being a mass-murdering maniac is like asking a serial killer to stop killing. It ain't gonna happen. An important point about Putin wanting to start a war with Ukraine is that his approval rating is quite low, around 62%, and a successful war would make that go up as it usually does in Russia. In 2013, Putin's approval rating was at its lowest since 2000. Then he invaded Ukraine and annexed Crimea and his approval rating went to 86%. Russians are easily manipulated by state medias and it shows, so Putin could pull the same trick again. The chief of NATO said during a press conference that the alliance was watching Russian troops near Ukraine. Watching is nice, but it does fuck all to deter Putin. Like watching Hitler invade half of Europe didn't do squat to stop him. The NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg answered a question at NATO Talk 2021 and it caused a stir in Russia. The question was, what if Germany stopped its participation in NATO nuclear sharing? What would NATO do? His answer, NATO would think about putting nuclear weapons somewhere else, perhaps in Eastern Europe. But that'll never happen because Germany will not be withdrawing from NATO or the nuclear sharing agreement. Meanwhile, the nutjobs in Moscow used this hypothetical answer as a threat, and the Russian Foreign Ministry said to Russian state medias that NATO wants to put nukes in Eastern Europe to target Russia soon, and that means the 1997 NATO-Russia Founding Act. The treaty that basically helps peace and diplomacy between Russia and NATO is no longer valid. It's almost like there's only warmongering crazy people in the Russian government, or Putin has told everyone to use any pretext to hype people into supporting a war on Ukraine to defend Russia from the evil NATO. Seems to me the Russian government really has an inferiority complex, always paranoid about NATO trying to get them. Guess what, Russia? Nobody cares about you. Stop trying to cause World War III to stay relevant. Senate Foreign Relations Chairman Bob Menendez has introduced an amendment that would trigger a cascade of sanctions against top Russian officials, the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, major financial institutions, sovereign debt transactions and more in the event of a Russian invasion of Ukraine. This all sound nice and all, but it would have to pass the Senate, which is full of pro-Russia Republicans, traitors as I call them. And for real sanctions to have any effect, you would need the entire backing of Germany, France and the United Kingdom, so good luck with that. Macron is a weakling, German politics is full of Russian puppets, and the United Kingdom is led by a moron with an IQ lower than room temperature. So what about, instead of talking about consequences if something happens, we actually do something now about it so it never happens? That's called deterrence, and it works. Satan's representative on Earth, Sergei Lavrov, continued with his warmongering bullshit today when he said that Russia wouldn't turn a blind eye to the most serious provocations by NATO and the European Union in backing Ukraine. When this piece of crap finally dies, the world will be a better place. Those so-called NATO and European provocations, as you call them, are all in your mentally diseased imagination. You keep invading countries and starting trouble, and when people fight back, you call that provocations. Fuck off and die, Lavrov. Two Russian nuclear-capable strategic bombers Tupolev 95 made a 10-hour flight over international waters near Alaska on Friday. More Russian saber-rattling bullshit. Putin really has tiny dick energy. TOS-1 heavy flamethrower system have been spotted on a train between Mechernsk and Voronezh. They are in transit to the Ukrainian border or Crimea. These multiple rocket launcher and thermobaric weapons are designed to attack enemy fortified positions. Putin would need those if he wanted to attack Ukraine and destroy Ukrainian positions fast to attack quickly and gain territory. The Ukrainian defense minister said that Putin is now at an inflection point, deciding whether to invade Ukraine all in or still try to force a compromise on his terms. According to experts, with the current tempo of deployments and the troops already in place, Russian forces will be ready for a major operation around mid-December. Former American ambassador to Azerbaijan Matthew Bryza wrote a letter saying the situation right now is quite like the situation back in August 2008. Relations between Georgia and Russia were bad and Putin had deployed massive forces on the border for exercises. Russia had also refused to talk to French, German and British diplomats to calm tensions down. Then Russia invaded. Russia is doing the same thing today, releasing private diplomatic cables between them and the West on talks with Ukraine, basically making sure nobody wants to do diplomacy with them, then blaming NATO for everything. Putin wants to put NATO in a very bad place. Either abandon your allies or go to war with Russia. The Center for the National Interest had an event focused on Ukraine and Russia with many Russia experts. All the experts agree that Russia is not bluffing with their 150,000 troops on the border. You can threaten to invade Ukraine so many times until you actually do it. Experts also agree that any future conflict will be on a much larger scale that will involve a big part of Ukraine, encircle or destroy the Ukrainian military and force a new political agreement favoring Russia. Basically, next time, Russia will go all in and probably try to take half of Ukraine. Russian puppets and bots on social medias have started pushing this map of Ukraine where Russia basically seized the entire Black Sea coast and half of the country. If Russian bots are pushing this, it means this is the actual plan. The Russian International Affairs Council is a think tank established by Medvedev in February 2010. It's basically a think tank created to push Russian lies and disinformation internationally but acting like they want peace and understanding. It's a tool to help push Putin's lies. This guy is Lieutenant General Yevgeny Buthinsky, the vice president of the council. He was in an interview saying that Ukrainian troops will be destroyed, that there will be no tank armies invading, that the Air Force will do everything. In typical warmongering fashion, he said that the West was already at war with Russia, that there's no hot war yet but there's already an economic, trade and sanctions war going on, that the West is attacking Russia with cyber attacks by the thousands. He also said he believes the Black Sea Fleet will sink the entire Ukrainian fleet in a couple of hours. He thinks there will be no ground invasion or seizure of territory, just an annihilation of the Ukrainian Navy, tank and Air Force. If Putin starts a war, let's hope it's just that. Trains full of BMP-3, Russian infantry fighting vehicles, have been spotted location unknown but are believed to be heading to the Ukrainian border. Now let's talk about the brewing new conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan. The Ministry of Defense of Armenia today confirmed that 6 soldiers died during the battles on the border of November 16. Armenia and Azerbaijan agree to talks in Brussels to overcome tensions, the European Union said today. Well, that's nice, but in the meantime, Azerbaijan has been massing troops and tanks on the border, so who knows what's gonna happen. According to reports, Azerbaijan is massing troops on the border where the previous clash occurred. The Armenian Defense Ministry is monitoring the movement and massing of troops. A video published on TikTok by an Azeri account showed the damage sustained by their units during the November 16 offensive. Now let's talk about the Belarusian situation. A few hours ago, the Minister of Defense of Belarus, Viktor Krenin, called the concentration of foreign troops on the border a preparation of war. Sure buddy, I mean it's not like you're trying to send 10,000 refugees through their border. If this was really a preparation for war, you would be shitting your pants, so stop your bullshit. On the Polish-Belarusian border, The Belarusian forces were seen destroying the refugee camps. Looks like Belarus has lost this round and is giving up. Good. Poland has sent a message to Belarus saying all freight traffic with the country would be suspended starting November 21. That will hurt China, Russia and Belarus. According to analysts, this might cost China almost $20 billion in exports per year. Looks like the Chinese government will have to use pressure on Minsk to back down or else they will lose a ton of money. Now the Chinese situation in the South China Sea. 2 days ago, Chinese Coast Guard boats attacked several Philippines Navy supply ships doing a resupply run at the second Thomas Shoal in the Spratly Islands with water cannons. The United States said that China was risking military action from the U.S. Navy if they continued this crap. The U.S. and the Philippines have a mutual defense treaty that was signed in 1951 and the Article 4 of the treaty invokes mutual defense. The U.S. Defense Secretary called his counterpart on Friday telling him that the U.S. would stand with their Philippine ally. The area in dispute is the second Thomas Shoal, which is basically a 20 kilometers long atoll. There's less than a dozen Navy personnel from the Philippines always on that rusty boat to keep a claim on the area. If anything happens, these guys will be the first to die or be captured. If at least half the world told China to fuck off until it stops being a warmongering dictatorship with concentration camps, we could get somewhere. But nothing is gonna change in Beijing until Europe and the United States find their balls and cut off China for good. Now in Iran. Massive protest in the third largest city in Iran today, in Isfahan. The people even booed the supreme leader's name when the loudspeaker talked about him. The Great Iranian Revolt is coming. People are protesting because of water shortages and the river that was once the life of the city and passed under its many historic bridges is no longer there. According to the Iranian government, 97% of the country is experiencing drought. The main cause of it all is mismanagement by the government, so of course people are pissed off. The French Navy largest ever exercise has kicked off yesterday and will last until December 3rd. The exercise is called Polaris and will involve half the French Navy fleet and will include about 6,000 French troops from all branches of the armed forces. The United States and the United Kingdom will both participate with one destroyer each. These were the news for November 18 and 19, 2021. Thank you and don't forget to like and subscribe.